All right. So you guys all the way out here all the way from Montana. You guys own a company, Scoute. You make firearms and do some other things. And so let's start by talking a little bit about the company. I don't know which one of you guys wants to kind of dig into that, but tell us a little bit about how your company, how you started it, and where you're at now.
So as far as how Scoute came to be, it started off with Trent and I, and leading up to that, in the prior years, I've personally been in the firearms industry for, I think, 14 years now. And that was directly after I got out of the military, did law enforcement for a little bit.
What did you do in law enforcement?
Just worked for Roswell Police Department in Georgia, and it was like 6 months.
Roswell in Georgia, okay.
Yeah.
Not New Mexico.
Not in Mexico. It wasn't really my thing. I got out of the military and then went into law enforcement, and I was like, no, this is kind of the same thing, so I'm not going to do this. And then just been in the gun industry, the firearms industry for a while, working in gun shops. I've been a part of several firearms companies and helped with the building, the sales, purchasing, things of that nature. And so the main thing that really kind of pushed, me to want to pursue this, at least, was the fact of buying a firearm off the shelf that I wasn't like truly happy with, right? So you buy I've had Remington 700s, I've had Brownings, I've had other custom rifles, and never been like truly happy. So I was like, you know what, kind of want to take my skill set that I've learned, attention to detail, things of that nature, and apply that to the firearms industry, and create a product that is second to none, attention to detail, fit and finish, performance, kind of everything through and through. And so Trent and I put our heads together and came up with this idea, and here we are in our 4th year into business, and we're making a lot of firearms.
Yeah, well, good for you.
So that's kind of how it came to be, sitting in your kitchen one night back in Georgia.
Yeah. I mean, it started there as a idea, and it just kind of evolved into something a lot more. So we've over the years have grown and grown, and so it's been a really good thing for both of us. And so, I mean, what he's now telling you is the fact that he moved his entire family out to Clyde Park, and he was with another firearm industry company at that time, and things just didn't work out. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of people can probably imagine like the firearm industry is just like any other business. There's a lot of investment, people embezzling, things that they shouldn't be doing, things, like poor business practice. And so that's kind of what happened in the last business. And so he was out there, just moved his whole family out. And even though we've had some discussions centered around the business, it didn't really, it forced us to really move forward with the idea.
Yeah.
And so, he was out in Clyde Park, Montana, and he's like, dude, I don't have a job. We're living in a place that has 300 people in it. Like there's nothing to do out here besides hunt and fish, which it's like a big playground for Creighton,
Right. Yeah.
And he's like, but I got to make money. Like, I don't want to make money, And so I was like, dude, that business we talked about back in my house, let's do it. That was the time. Like, it kind of, I think, I'm a big believer that God works in mysterious ways. And, sometimes, things don't go your way at your time. But in this case, it did. It worked out, So, and starting it was hard. Like any other business, it was hard. It was difficult. We started from the ground up. And what's funny is how we started off was he was in a rental home. It just happened to have a garage attached to it. And so we started off in this garage, had no heat, had no AC.
You don't really need that in Montana.
No.
Right?
Yeah, especially February, March timeframe.
Yeah, negative 40. I mean,
12 degrees in your garage. It's perfect.
Yeah, we got like 5 space heaters going at the same time just to keep warm. And so, I ended up, starting there, and so some business models, some business plans came through, and now we're inside of Schnee's, which is on Main Street in Bozeman, Montana. So it's a prime location, and we've kind of evolved from where we started to now, and things have been great.
Yeah.
They've been excellent. So
How'd you guys come up with the name Scout?
Yeah.
you want to take that one? Or you?
And I'll take it.
All right.
So my background in the military, I was a scout sniper in the Marine Corps. And I think with, when you say the word scout, so it can be implemented in a lot of different ways, like scouting for animals, scouting for, whatever you want. In the military, scout, you're observing, right? And so a lot of that ties into the hunting world. Our main focus with our firearms is hunting, right? So we build ultralight, long-range precision rifles that are formatted to mountain hunters. Obviously, we veer off of that. We do competition-style rifles, tactical rifles. I mean, we're doing gas guns and custom pistols as well. But our main focus and what really started and kicked this business off was our ultralight precision rifles. And they're forgiving, right? So ultralight rifles, especially in big magnum cartridges, don't really tie into forgiving. You don't really hear those two very often, but we've found great recipes for a product that offers both. So as far as the name Scout goes, Scout obviously is a scout sniper. And then the E on the end, my last name is Greene with a silent E. So we put an E on the end.
Hey, we got a silent E too.
Yeah.
Graybow.
There you go.
Yeah.
That was Trent's idea. And I was like, yeah, let's roll with that. And so,
And basically, I mean, we couldn't find a domain just with Scout. So it's like we had to add something to the end right there to make it like,
make it
pretty
unique
cool.
to you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, he's his signature. He's creates the brains, he's the power, he's the designer, he's everything behind these rifles, and that's why they're just stellar. I mean, I think they're one of the best rifles on the market. And so he takes a lot of time, and he takes, he's very precise and methodical in his thought process to make these rifles some of the best rifles on the market. So, and I tell him all the time, I'm like, dude, this has got your signature on the back, like the E. Every time a rifle goes out, like that is your signature. So, I think you kind of taking that to heart.
Yeah. No compromise.
No compromise.
Our motto,
so
that ties into every platform, every product we produce.
Yeah.
All that attention to detail is going into it. So that's what the customer expects.
Yeah.
And that's what they'll get.
Yeah, we take the rifles out, we zero them, make sure they go bang every time. And so Creighton's been doing that. We're going to make sure these things are on point, like they're holding a zero like they should be. And there's sometimes that he goes out there and he fires them and they're not holding a group. We're not going to hand a customer a rifle that's not holding at least a half inch MOA, right? So
if they don't shoot half MOA, they don't go out. And we've had to pull guns back apart and go in, rechamber, check the free bore, look at different lot numbers of ammo. Because we've had there's quality control issues with ammunition too. So it's like, just got to find that recipe, right? So if somebody wants to take a rifle that when I shoot it and take it to the range and it's delivered, it will shoot half-inch groups with factory ammunition. So with that, if you start doing hand loads for these things, they get stupid. Like you can find the right recipe, and these things just are absolute lasers. And so that's what our customers expect. You can go to any store, other custom gun makers, and shoot 1-inch groups, 1 MOAs. 1,000 yards, that's 10 inches. Still pretty good, right? But I mean, if you're trying to go to that next level, they just got to be with it.
I'll tell you the reason that they're just like that every time is because most of them have Graybow stocks on.
I was going to mention that. I'm glad you said that.
I just don't want to brag, but
That's right. That's good. That's good.
So when a customer comes to you guys and wants a rifle, are they looking, is the customer able to go, okay, I'm going on a bear hunt, or I'm going on an elk hunt, or I'm going on a sheep hunt, and you have a specific rifle for that? Or, I mean, how do you guys, when you guys develop a rifle, is it specific for an animal, or is it a little bit more broad? Like, kind of give us some insight on how you decide what a rifle configuration should look like for the customer.
Absolutely. And this is the difference between, a lot of other custom rifle makers out there and what we do. So I have a series of questions that we ask the customer. Okay, what is your intended use for this platform going to be? So that kind of sets a baseline for the rest of my questions, right? It's, okay, so I'm going to be, I live in Montana. I'm going to be hunting everything from antelope to hopefully one day moose when I draw a tag. 20 years. So, okay, well, you're going to need something that will obviously not be necessarily overkill for the smaller critters, but still be able to go up and, kill big critters like moose, or if you go to Alaska shooting brown bear. And so we'll look at that. We'll look at barrel length, twist rate. So say that guy, he wants to cover that broad spectrum, right? I would recommend something probably in the 7mm realm, like a 7 PRC. You can load down to pretty lightweight bullets that are going to be coming out super fast. They're going to be super flat, so you can shoot antelope and not blow a giant hole through them, depending on your projectile selection. And then you can load all the way up to 195 grain, burger to shoot moose with, or 185 grain, something bonded to shoot moose with, so you get that penetration. So you've kind of got that full spectrum there, right? Say a different customer comes out, he's like, man, I'm just going to be shooting coyotes, antelope. I want something short, compact. All right, let's look at a 6mm Creedmoor. Let's look at a 22 Creedmoor. Something you can load down to 80 grain bullets all the way up to 90 grain bullets. And then with the 6mm, I think you can go down to 75 grain Hornady VMAX, which are screaming out of there, which would be great for shooting coyotes. Well, shooting antelope 400 or 500 yards, you might want to move up in grain, so you can go up to 115s. Cutting the barrel down so you can run a suppressor. What kind of stock do you like? Or do you like something modular, like a chassis, or do you want something that is like a lightweight mountain stock, like the Graybow Trekker, right? That thing is freaking light. It's minimalist. Forget you have it on you because it's so light.
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of deciding all those factors with the customer is what truly sets us apart. And the fact that we can recommend optics, put the right rings on there with the integrated bubble level, what suppressor are you going to run? It all comes down to a lot of questions and their intended use for the platform. So we will truly custom build the rifle around what you're specifically wanting to do with it.
So yeah, you're describing every rifle's custom, and you're going to build that. You don't have anything that like a customer come in and just say, "Oh, here's a rifle. I want to buy that because I know what I want." Every customer you have like a pretty deep conversation with, and like, this is how we're going to build your rifle based upon what you want to do with it.
Mostly, we do have stock rifles like in stock on the shelf right now that people could walk in and buy it right there. But everybody's different, right? When you come to it's like getting fitted for a suit, right? Everybody's different. Mm-hmm. And so having a purpose-driven platform for that customer as an availability is huge, because not everybody's going to want a 22-inch 6.5 PRC with a number 4 steel barrel. They want to change things up. And so that's a very small portion of what we do, but the majority would be the full custom builds.
When you do like a custom build, what's your estimated lead time? I know it probably changes, but people, because you've got to buy the barrel from the manufacturer, you got to buy the stock from the manufacturer, the action, and a lot of the times, like right now, actions, they're hard to get for anyone. So what are you quoting right now? A ballpark, because I know they're all different.
We're between 4 and 5 months right now, and a lot of that is dependent on our suppliers. So with the action thing, right? So we are in the process of having our own design Scoute action. We're going to be doing some proprietary things that nobody in the business has done yet. That's going to kind of change the game on rigidity on lightweight actions. So that's going to be cutting one more of those pieces out to where we actually have gained control over that, which has been honestly the longest lead times, because you've got a bunch of companies out there making very similar actions, and their lead times are ridiculous.
Yeah.
If that's the last thing we're waiting on, we don't want to add that extra time frame to our customers.
Yeah. The industry standard right now is 4 to 6 months.
Sure.
Right. And so, but we've been working really hard on how to, decrease that lead time. As far as we're looking at, if this works out, we probably do it in 2 to 3 months. And the trick behind that is to have more on hand, right? More actions on hand, more barrels on hand,
more money in inventory,
just more money, So we're looking for investors too, So no, I think that's the name of the game, right? Yeah. If your longest lead time is actions and barrels, well, we need to have more of those on hand. And so I think that would really help us be able to cut down, it is a custom rifle, right? We want to make sure that we get it right. And so, but if we can hand a customer a custom rifle in 2 to 3 months, that's leading the industry, I think. And so we're working hard on making that happen.
So what's the mindset behind, you've got all these different parts that are coming in, and, you've got customers. I mean, we've seen in our business where customers, if you make them wait too long, they'll just cancel. So there's a business mindset behind trying to get more inventory in, but that means more cash outlay for you. But there's you're trying to get the customer, entice the customer with different things, right? You started out by talking about how the quality, like uncompromisable quality, that's awesome and that's great. But there's other things that you need to do to try to capture other customers, like speed of delivery speed. I mean, when you look at that, you guys are already kind of moving towards doing your own action to try to cut that lead time down. But it seems like there's other pieces of the puzzle too: barrels, stocks, triggers, accessories, ammunition. Like, where do you guys see yourself in the future moving to try to continue to bring that lead time down, or is that not a huge deal to you?
I mean, it's definitely a huge deal for us. I mean, I think if we can be set our standards higher and be able to perform more customer like satisfaction, I think having more of these things in stock would help. I think a great partnership with Graybow is one of those things, right? So we've always had a really good partnership with you guys, and you have provided a quality product every time. And they're like, our lead time on stocks is nothing. We're not even concerned about our stocks right now. We're not concerned about scopes, rings, triggers, anything else. I mean, our focus right now, because we have such good vendors and suppliers, like our only really main focus right now is actions, which we are in the process now to correct that. Like, we're going to have our own stuff. Like, it's proprietary. It's going to be something like you've never seen before. And so once we get those in, which could happen at the end of this month, which is pretty freaking close. So we're right there on the end of the cuffs on that. So, and the other thing after that is the barrels.
Yeah. How is it? How is it getting barrels right now? Because I know the two things that are hardest to get are barrels and actions in the industry. So you guys built some relationships with some barrel makers. You guys getting barrels delivered on time, or is it still a massive lead time issue?
It's it's definitely gotten better. We've dealt with a lot of different barrel companies in the past. Ran into quality control issues, just ran into delivery time and fulfillment issues. We've got a really good relationship right now with Osprey barrels, and that's who we're currently using on all of our steel platform and carbon fiber platform. It has been consistent with the quality control on them. They shoot incredibly, and so we're spending less money on barrel break-in with ammunition. The time frames drop down. So we just had that really good relationship with them. Different contoured barrels, their carbon fiber system that they've got with the way that it's wrapped, and the internal contour of their 400 series steel barrels. It's second to none. And so we've been super happy with them, and we'll continue to use them for as long as we can.
What's your thoughts on proof?
We don't get into that. So, like I said, we've tried a lot of companies out there, and the consistency has been lacking. When a company gets too big, too quick, and they start compromising their quality control, and it ends up being barrels that we have to send back, that's not good. That's wasted time on our end, and now we got to relay that to the customer. Hey, man, you got your rifle together, check everything in the barrel, and it's, we got to find a new barrel to put on your gun. Well, and now we just increased the lead time. And so having a consistent company like Osprey has been a huge blessing to us and our customers, because now we're able to deliver that, perfect product quicker.
Yeah.
And so we will continue to use them. We're also looking at it's brand new. It has just been released. We're going to be getting our first test barrels in as soon as we get back from this trip, actually. But it's a local company out of Bozeman, and they are now doing titanium structured barrels. And so we'll be one of the first companies to be offering that to our customers. You get less thermal shift, you get less string of fire with the titanium structured barrel, so we've been told, but we'll be doing the final testing on that. Been talking with the company for a while now on that platform.
Yeah, what are the real benefits of titanium over steel?
Well, the weight, one thing.
Weight.
That's the whole purpose of carbon fiber, right? Is you keep the same contour, you keep the rigidity, but you're losing all the weight essentially. So instead of running a 6-pound barrel, you're running a 2.8-pound barrel, which when you're carrying it around the mountains is huge. And so now the difference between the carbon fiber and titanium, or steel and titanium, with the titanium structured barrel, and this is not my personal experience yet. We're gonna test that and test these theories. They're even lighter than the carbon fiber barrels, and they are more rigid without the thermal shift as well. So the way that they're structured transfers the heat evenly and continues to do so even through longer strings of fire. And so that's something we're very excited about. You build a 300 PRC with a carbon fiber barrel on it. Well, you start getting 5, 6, 7 rounds down the barrel, the sucker gets hot.
So do you know if it's like challenging to make these? Obviously barrels have been around for hundreds of years, and now all of a sudden we've got some titanium barrel. First of all, immediately I'm thinking, what's the cost on that? It's got to be astronomical, but maybe not. And then two, like, it's got to be hard to make. I mean,
well, it's a sleeving system. So it is a 3D printed structuring sleeve that goes over the stainless steel barrel core. I think it's a lot easier to make than what we would expect, because the price reflects that.
Just like stocks. Stocks are easy to make.
Yeah,
right.
So easy.
Super easy.
So easy.
So easy.
And but that sleeved barrel system, I think it's going to be the new latest and greatest thing if it does perform the way that it's supposed to.
So like a sleeve, is it in a similar way like a carbon fiber is kind of a sleeve as well? I mean, is it a similar structure? Like you have your standard, hogged out or machined out barrel outer, and you put the titanium sleeve over the top of that. Is that how that works?
I believe so. That's just from my past conversations with them. I believe that's how they're doing it. There's also carbon fiber barrel companies that are doing that as well, which we don't use those.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. You start seeing inconsistencies and thermal shift with all that, different mediums heat up and warp and change, throughout that process. So, like I said, this is all tentative. We're going to test the crap out of this thing when we get back and make sure it does what it's supposed to do.
But the technology is cool. I mean, how much technology have we seen in this industry? And like, I've been in this industry almost 20 years now, but like I really think it's since 5 years after the war started or something, as money started to really get pumped into the war and weapon systems, and then some shift happened that like the technology in the last 15 years has just gone through the roof. When I first got in this industry, it was still really a good old boy industry, and that's really changed a lot over the last probably 10 or 15 years. So yeah, the technology is in this industry is crazy. It's really crazy.
There's a lot of focus on weight. Right. I think, being out west as you're climbing up mountains, and like, it's a real thing. It is like, I'm from the deep South, and, and we're, you'd be 350 pounds overweight and you just climb up into a tree stand and sit there for 8 hours and wait. You don't ever take that in consideration ever. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, some guys that I hunted with back in Georgia, like, they'd drive their ATV right under their tree stand and just like the
elevator. I don't even want to climb. I'm just gonna.
Pretty so hard. And maybe out to Montana, we're doing like 6, 7, 8 mile trips and climbing, thousands of elevation, right? So we're up the mountains, like every ounce counts. You feel it. You feel every ounce on your back, and so as we get older, too, my 30s, I probably wouldn't care as much, but now that I'm in my 40s and my back hurts, my legs hurt, like everything freaking hurts, right? So I have a hard time just stepping in the shower without like grabbing my back. There's always something hurting. And it's kind of like you, the fire department, right? So I mean, something's always hurting.
Yep.
So because you're always trying to come up with something lighter. Something better. And I think it's kind of why everything is evolving the way it is, especially out west. Right. So, and that goes beyond firearms too. I think that goes with packs and all your gear. Like,
you see so many companies out there. I mean, just like even now we just got back from marsupial gear.
Yeah.
And they're just focusing on ultralight, like heavy duty equipment that's ultralight, right? So it's easy to take on the mountain with you. I mean, if you've ever spent days hiking around the mountains with all of your crap on you, and then you kill an elk and you're like, wow, now I've got to add 110 pounds to this pack. You're glad that you have minimalistic gear, right? And so, like you said, every ounce counts. So that goes right into your, whether it's your bow, your rifle, your trekking poles, your pack frame, sleeping systems, layering systems, all of it. It all comes into play.
Things that the Marine Corps never provided for.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, you learn the hard way in the Marine Corps. Now you just want to make it easy.
Right. Instead of ripping around with a freaking almost 16-pound M40A5.
You'll pay more. You'll pay more for the carbon fiber barrel. You probably pay more for this titanium barrel. I mean, you just want to pay for the, for that convenience. But is it worth it? At the end of the day, it's worth it.
There's been another shift in the industry that I've seen is that people, people are willing to pay more. Now, I don't know if that's because people have more money. I'm not sure if people who had more money got into the industry, but there is, when I first started in this industry, you'd have a very cheap gun that you would buy off the shelf. Like I don't even know a name. Let's say like Grandpa, or like a Savage.
Can I say Ruger American?
Like a Ruger American. I was thinking Ruger American.
Okay.
That wasn't around back then.
Guys.
But a Ruger American's a good example. You buy a $400 or $500 rifle, and when you're a stock maker who makes a stock for $700 or $800, no way do you think you can make a stock and people will buy it because they just bought the entire rifle with a stock included for $500. But that's changing. Like some of these companies out there are really making good $500 rifles, but the stuff on it sucks. So people are throwing the crap off of it. They're keeping the barreled action, and they'll buy a stock from us and they'll put like a $3,000 scope on it. We're like, by the end of the end of their whole thing, it's an $8,000 or $10,000 setup, but the whole rifle started as $500. So there's just so many. I guess my point is there's so many things shifting in this industry constantly. Like what you thought was the way to do it last year is not the way to do it again this year. And there's people like you getting into the industry and becoming, just bringing so much unique innovation. And what's also awesome is there's so much more money in this industry than there was when I first got in. Like the amount of, the amount of stock makers alone has exploded just in the last 10 or 15 years. And like the quality of stocks and all the design and uniqueness and materials and the processes used in making stocks has exploded. It's like, wow, like stocks have been around for a long, long time. And it really in the last 10, 15 years, things have just like exponentially got better I think in every single segment of the firearms industry. So and it's interesting that you guys are coming in, trying to make the firearm, that firearm better, make it lighter. And you guys are being paid nicely for it. Your customers will pay that. And that's, I guess, what my point is, like, customers are just like, hey, no problem. Here's a $6,000 gun, $7,000 gun, $10,000 system. Oh, plus I got to go buy my gear and I got to go buy my tags. I just think there's a lot of money in this industry. It's almost unfathomable. I mean, I'm sitting here going on this monologue here, but we were just at the SHOT Show. You can't even walk the entire SHOT Show and see every booth. It's impossible. Like, how are there this many firearms companies that make enough money that they can spend probably about $50,000 to go out to Vegas, have a booth, have a setup, have their employees out there, pay for the Vegas prices? There's just an unbelievable amount of money in this industry, and I think it's crazy every time I see something like that.
Yeah. And it is. I mean, it's evolving yearly. Monthly, it seems. I mean, just even the technology in the last 5 years, it's just wild. And theories and applications of things, it's just it's wild. So if you're not staying on top of that, then you're already behind the curve. And so whether it be stock, barrel making, full rifle building, different types of Cerakote and patterns, and just it changes yearly. It's wild. So you really have to stay with the time. You have to, otherwise you're not even competing.
Now, what level of gunsmithing are you guys doing to these guns?
So we do so like I said, we're about to have our own action. Up until this point, we have an OEM action with another manufacturer who is building the actions. We're outsourcing the actions, from them. So we have not on site in Schnees, but we do the threading, barreling, chambering, crowning to the barrels there. And then, actually in-house in the main store, we're doing the Cerakote, we're doing the bedding, all the final assembly testing, we're doing the scope mounting and leveling, suppressors, pretty much anything and everything beyond that. So, which we're in the process of moving towards having, absolutely everything in-house, but we do not have the room in there right now. That's why we have all the threading and chambering and all that done in a different store, so which is north of us in Montana.
Now, is that are you outsourcing? Is that a contractor, or is that another location you guys have?
It's not our location. We're contracting that out.
Okay.
To a guy who, he's been in the industry for a long time, and he does absolutely phenomenal work. And so we completely trust him to do it exactly the way it's supposed to be done. Obviously we double check everything, but it's like perfect every time. And so we'll continue that relationship with him. Like I said, we just don't have the room right now. So for a giant lathe,
it's always a matter of space and resources and money versus, it's just always balancing all that stuff. So, but you guys did come across something pretty sweet the last few months. Maybe it's more than a few months, but your relationship with Schnees. Am I saying that right? Schnees, sorry, Schnees. I'm still trying to. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about that relationship and then how that came about and how that's manifested?
Absolutely. All right. So, Schnees has been a supporter of us just like you have from the beginning. Graybo's been there, Schnees has been there. We've had some really good companies that have been a huge part of our success just from the get-go, believing in our product, believing in what we do. And so they're a boot maker. And, I know they make shoes and a bunch of other stuff as well. But as far as the boots go, when you're, in the mountains and you're hunting, you need a good pair of boots. Your ankle support, they've got to be comfortable, good tread, resilient leather, the treatment, the way everything's built on them has to be good. That's your main connection to the earth. And so having that and not rolling an ankle when you're 8 miles back is huge. And so I can't remember how, I was given a pair of Schnees boots a long time ago. And I wore them and wore them and wore. I was like, these are by far the most comfortable boots that I've ever worn in my life. And so I just, in that aspect alone, this was before I knew anybody there, I was like, I'm a firm believer in their product. And so when we moved to Montana, we linked up with them and we told them about our Precision Hunter Development course. And they're like, I believe in what you're doing. I think we need more of this. If there's any way we can support you, we'd love to. And so that's how that relationship started. Fast forward a couple more years and, them continuing to support us sending people their way for footwear. I met John Edwards, who's one of the owners of Schnees. The owner of Schnees. And I didn't even know he was the owner. Just one of those guys, just the most laid back, chill dudes. Loves the Lord, loves hunting, loves the outdoors. This guy I could just sit down and have a conversation with. In fact, I didn't know he was the owner for a while. I was just like, hey man, what's up? I go into the store, thinking he just worked there. And then come to find out, I was like, this is the guy. And so that in itself, spoke volumes of that business in itself. And so I met him, then Trent met him, and we just kind of started developing that relationship organically. We went to their Ram Rendezvous, which is right there at their store. They shut that whole block down in the middle of town. You've got vendors out there. You've got hunters coming in from all over, and it's just a good time. Everybody's drinking beer, eating food. It's a good time. So just after that, John approached us, said, I want a rifle. I was like, all right, let's say no more. Well, what kind of rifle? And so we had that same conversation of like, all right, what's the application going to be? He's like, well, we're going to be doing an ibex hunt, and I want something that's light, short, easily maneuverable, that I can shoot out over 1,000 yards. I was like, okay, we can do that. So I built him a 6.5 PRC, and it was actually what turned out to be the Schnee edition rifle called the Highlight. So there's a mountain range over there, and there's people that are from around there know about like Highlight Reservoir, Highlight Peak, and so that was kind of the name. So the engraving on the bottom of this was actually the topography from that peak engraved into the bottom metal, right? So it's very unique. And so that came to be, he's like, that's what I want. So we did an 18-inch 1 7/5 twist, 6.5 PRC, carbon fiber barrel, and adjustable stock, just super short and compact. Put a night force on top of it. The day before he left for this hunt, we got it completed. So took him to the range out in Three Forks. He shot 100 yards, put down a tight group, got on the ballistic solver. All right, here's what we need. There's a target at 1,100 yards. Dial this, and he's a shooter too. Like, so it's pretty easy. It's like point and click, right?
Mm-hmm.
So 1 round, 1,100 yards, center punch the plate. He's like, okay. And we worked our way from 1,100 all the way into 400, just center punching every single plate. So he had that confidence, right?
Yeah.
And so he left the next day for that ibex hunt. And then, we had no contact with him for a few days because he was, out and about. And finally he got back in the service and let us know he ended up smoking a giant ibex. I think it was like 680 yards, and he was just amped. And so when he came back, he got in touch with us and was like, I want to work more with you guys. I think that's how. Like, it's been a while.
I mean, it like, I guess 4 years of just good old boys, building that relationship, networking. I mean, I think it was just like Creighton said, he's a good Christian guy and wants get back to the roots of Bozeman, and I think that's a big objective for him. And that's, he loved our product. Yeah, I think what we skip over in business sometimes is the relationships and the people that we're building relationships with, right? You don't want to be spending time with a dirtbag, right? That just turns people off, right? And there's a lot of dirtbags in business and the industry. And so I think John, just like we think of him, the owner Schnees, is like, he's a good guy. He's good people. And I think he saw that in us too. So I kind of, once again, like just time spending, with John and the people in his, facility. It's a family business. Schnees is. So we've got to know his 3 kids very well. So they all work there in the store, and so we're there daily, practically. And so we've built a really good relationship with him over time. But yeah, John kind of came to us and he said, look, man, I like you guys. I like your product. I think, it'd be really good for our boots. It kind of makes sense, for hunters to come in here, want to buy our boots and look at your rifles. They kind of go hand in hand. So I think, he saw kind of the vision, and so did we. And so we got an opportunity of a lifetime. I think, he's been a tremendous blessing to us. And I think that's kind of, just developing those relationships over time. You don't know what's going to happen. You just don't know what they're going to come out to be. And so, so he asked us to come in, and we couldn't say no. I think the opportunity kind of presented itself.
Yeah. Well, when you're in business, I mean, those are the types of opportunities you just hope for, like partner with a company that just, you kind of have some synergies together. And so Schnees, are they just one location in Bozeman, or they have multiple locations?
No, they only have one flagship store. That's the only, they've really, they have an incredible online presence. So they have enormous manufacturing facilities and distribution centers that are right there in Bozeman too. I was invited to go look at that 6-7 months ago. He's got a 12,000 square foot, distribution center that I walked through, and boots from the freaking ground to the freaking point. All 12,000 square feet of it's just boots, and so he's got great partnerships in Italy. Most of them are made over there in Italy and different places around the world. And he also has a good repair shop right there in Bozeman too. So, it's a great company. And the greatest thing about it too would be the fact that they've been around for 100 years. What's really cool about it is, when we had that discussion to come back into his store, was he came and he walked us to the exact place where they started gunsmithing. It's like, dude, this is where it started 100 years ago.
So Schnees was doing gunsmithing?
Yes. It used to be called the powder horn. Yeah, it's called the powder horn. So that's how it started. And it kind of over time turned into boots.
To boots.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, maybe maybe that's where he's looking at his roots and going, we used to be gunsmiths, and maybe we need to get back to that. Yeah.
And the other thing too is like, from what we know, there's not another gunsmith in Bozeman. So, and this is much needed for that location. People fly right into the Bozeman airport, they're ready to go back on, some kind of, hunt. They need something right away or need something done before they go on a $10,000, $20,000 hunt. Right. So, what a perfect spot for us to be in, for them to stop by and like, here's my rifle, make sure it shoots, So we've had that happen already. So.
Yeah. So you guys come from Georgia to Bozeman. By the way, maybe one of the most beautiful places I've ever been to.
Georgia, it's gorgeous, Yeah.
Funny guy. That's a funny guy.
If you love like 10 million people in one county, I mean, yeah, I guess.
Well, I remember driving. I did a trip, and I ended up in Missoula, and then I drove through Bozeman and had some meetings. I met with you there, and just remember thinking to myself, man, this is probably the most beautiful city I've ever been through. Yeah. The mountains are just so like in your face, and it's so green, and there's water everywhere, and it's like this cool little small town. I don't know if you guys consider it a small town, but it's definitely small compared to here. But there's some, there's this old, it feels like there's this old school feel to Bozeman where there's just a lot of ranchers and hunters, but there's a lot of new people moving into Bozeman. What do you guys, how is Montana and Bozeman in particular changing at all, if it's changing at all?
It's kind of hard for, us to speak on that. Like I said, like we're from Georgia. So, I'm not from Montana. I've only lived in Montana. It's been, less than 5 years.
Yeah.
But I mean, just in that 5 years, I've seen a change. Like we said, we started over in Clyde Park. Clyde Park's a little town of 300 people. It's awesome. I mean, it's terrible. Do not ever go there.
Worst hunting ever. You don't want to fly in Montana for hunting.
Eagles will swoop down and take your kids, and
dogs
people
are gone.
live in caves, and
terrible place.
And so, just in the last 5 years, we've seen quite the change. So I talk to people that have lived there for 20, 30 years, and they're just like, it's unrecognizable. It used to be like the coolest little mountain town. And I have been going out there since I was 12. I'd go out there yearly with my dad, camping and fishing, hiking, things of that nature. And I look back on those days, and even I'm just like, man, yeah, it has changed. And so going back to our partnership with Schnee's and being on Main Street, right? So it's like, man, we got to keep this alive. We're manufacturing rifles on Main Street, Bozeman. Make Bozeman great again.
Do you feel like those traditional companies and the traditional people who have been around Bozeman for a long time are like kind of like this, like the Schnee's guys, like trying to? Is there like a battle a little bit to keep that town like that old school rancher, hunter, hiker, outdoorsy feel?
Absolutely, it is a battle, and they're battling it. Daily.
Yeah, I mean, the last 4 years is probably even longer. Like the ranchers, it's a hard life, right? I mean, they haven't gotten the support from the government. We personally know a rancher in Clyde Park, and they struggle, and people don't realize what it takes to like run a ranch.
It's interesting, the timeline. You said the last 4 years that ranchers aren't getting support from that.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what significant happened.
I wouldn't know.
It's probably
it's probably not. It's a coincidence.
Yeah. I said that first too, right? So it's
what's really funny is, so when I came out to your course out there, that's the first time I'd really spent any time in Montana. Of course, I was in Billings, but I fell in love. I love it. I tell my wife when we first met, she's like, okay, when you retire, what do you want to do? I'm like, I don't know, Oklahoma, Texas, move somewhere out there where life's a little bit different. After being in Montana, I'm like, we're going to Montana. And she's like, it snows there quite a bit. Right? I go, yeah, I was talking to those guys. They said sometimes they get snow in May. And she goes, yeah, we're not going to Montana. I'm like, no, we're going to Montana. She wants to go to Florida. So we'll probably compromise, me in the middle, and move to Florida.
That's it.
I'll still have to come out and visit you guys. I just absolutely love it out there.
It's the most beautiful place.
Yeah. Unreal. Like, she's never been. So I think she's kind of like, discriminating against you guys because of the snow.
Yeah.
But I think if she actually went and just saw maybe in August.
Yeah, bring her out in
Hey,
July.
the reality is that Florida just got snow, right? So I mean, it snows in Florida too. So
Yeah, I've been to Pensacola. Florida's not as amazing as everybody thinks.
Right. Yeah.
Sorry, Phil.
no, but the snow's not, I mean, we were kind of concerned about that too. So with my wife and kids, I mean, we were like, man, I don't know if we're going to survive, winter. But it's a different feel. I mean, in Georgia, it's a wet, cold, nasty, snow, right? And so out here, like every day goes on, like it doesn't stop. I mean, the heart rate keeps on beating, and people keep on going. Like, in Georgia, if white stuff starts falling from the sky, and if every school is closed, right? Nobody's on the roads, business shuts down, like, But now it's like, man, if there's like 2 feet of snow, it's like you go to school, you go to work, you're in it.
Negative 40 degrees and 3 feet of snow on the ground, and people just like, yeah, go on.
So
great.
These transplants from California, how are they taking the negative 40 degree weather in the snow?
I have no idea.
Maybe they should
Probably not great.
They shouldn't.
You blame the TV series Yellowstone for that?
I'm sure it definitely had an impact on
I heard
that.
Wyoming is getting a ton of people.
They are.
Sure.
They are.
Yeah, I mean, that's things happening all over. All the mountainous, western states are starting to see an impact.
Yeah. Well, it's cheap. I mean, if you lived in California, I mean, you're paying a fortune for your house. You sell your house and you can go live like a king in Idaho. Not anymore, but 10 years ago, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, those places are beautiful. And you can literally just go a few hundred miles west and you basically quadruple your money just by selling your property in California. So
I mean, it's not like that anymore, as you know, like in Bozeman, Belgrade, that area. I mean, we just bought our house back in September, and we're 2,700 square foot house, so 750,000, and so that's
how many
actually
acres? You on an acre?
zero.
0 acre. Like
Yeah.
a lot. You're
Like negative father. I mean, like
Like you
underground.
pass a cup of sugar through the window to your neighbor.
yeah, I mean, we went in mutual aid, in a neighborhood that's right there at the Bozeman Airport, and we don't have to, go out there and shovel snow around, and we don't have to cut our grass type thing. Which, as busy as we are trying to, continue to grow Scout, I mean, it was important for that. But no acreage whatsoever. I mean, so I think it's tough. It's unless you're coming from California, New York, to where you sell your, same square footage, $2,700 or something, like $1 million plus, right? And then you have the capital, the means to be able to afford a house in Bozeman. I mean, that's what's driving up the cost right there is people are willing to pay, higher prices. And it started back in COVID, unfortunately.
Yeah.
That's where all this crap started. People started, inflation started. It was just a weird color in our lives. Like, I can imagine like wearing, going back to that whole situation. Like, how stupid were we to, put masks and be mandated, for something like, you could breathe right through it and it didn't matter, Oh,
yeah, I was working for the fire department at the airport, and I was talking to some European people, and this is during that time, and they were like, genuinely, they're like, we're pissed at you guys. I'm like, what are you talking about? We're like, because you guys are America.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, they're like, you guys won't be pushed around. You guys have your Constitution and your rights. You guys are over here buckling. It's screwing us, man. If you guys would just stand up and be Americans, the rest of this would just blow over. And I'm like, son of a bitch, he's got a good point. He's got a good point.
We did finally come around, but it took a while.
From COVID?
Well, from COVID, yeah. Eventually we said enough is enough. But, part of it, it's, if the media is not on your side, back then, like podcasting was just coming up and you just didn't have the support of the mainstream media, like the little guys, like there was businesses being shut down left and right in California for trying to stay open. They were shutting them down for stupid reasons and you could barely get any information about that, but they were going all the time. Yeah. And so eventually I think what happened is there was just enough momentum of enough stuff happening and enough just journalists that were like sick of it and that finally started to kind of surface, even though the social media companies the journalists, the government, they were all trying to stifle all of it. But just enough cracks started to leak, and then finally it kind of just broke through the surface.
Well, I think the timing was perfect, right? You had COVID, and then obviously we had a presidential election that happened right then and there, and so that kind of shifted everything. And they were not kind of like where we are right now with President Trump. I think that's we got sick of it.
Yeah,
they realized like a lot of stuff shouldn't have happened the last administration. So I'm hopeful for the future. I think it's going to be a great 4 years, especially in our business, your business. Yeah, I think it's going to be, and I think we're just on the cusp of making it exceptional. You have money to spend. People have the means to be able to afford stuff that they would want. Grocery prices is going to decrease, and gas and everything else. So
it's been a weird few years. So when Biden first got in, usually in the gun industry, a Democrat gets in, and that's good for gun sales. Especially Obama was he was the best for gun sales because he just kept talking about banning guns constantly, and people just wanted to buy and buy and buy. Biden wasn't that big of a deal with him because as soon as he got in, COVID was there, and then the riots started happening, and then that's when everybody changed their mind about whether or not they needed guns. Right? People, once Antifa threatened to come to the suburbs, everybody's like, okay, that's enough. This might be real.
Yeah.
And so in the Biden administration, the only thing that kept the sales alive, the sales in 2021 and 22 were high because there was a lot of money that the government was just handing out to people. And there was fear because of the riots, but then that just kind of started to fade in 23 and 24. And then, the economy really sucked because they were handing out money and printing money, and then inflation, all that stuff. The last year or two have been pretty rough. So I guess my point is, you get to Trump coming back in. Usually when you have a Republican president, the fear is not there. So the sales are not as high, but you also, on the other end, you have the economy that's, we hope that's going to go, return.
yeah,
And so people have that extra money to go buy.
I mean, I would agree with you, except for like ARs, right? That's a self-defense weapon. I don't think anybody's buying ARs anymore.
I think you're right.
Yeah, there's like 5 with the 10 in everybody's closet or gun safe, or there's a surplus of ARs out there. So I think being in the bolt action, precision world, I think there's still going to be a demand for that. So we focus on the bolt actions, we focus on, the pistols and that kind of thing, but we get very little, I guess, as far as the demand on ARs.
Yeah, gas guns. I mean, pretty much 85% of the gas guns we sell are more angled towards precision shooting or like coyote hunting, predator hunting. Mm-hmm. So a lot of 22 arcs, 6 arcs.
Well, hunting is still one of the biggest events that you do that needs a firearm. Like, the ARs were bought for self-defense, but people mostly aren't going out and shooting those on a regular basis. They're a lot of it's for self-defense. Now, some people are, but hunting rifles are like, a lot of people still hunt, a lot, and that's really still the dominant part of the industry is hunting. So a lot of people get in this industry and think, I'm going to make these tactical rifles, whether it's an AR or a bolt gun. Like, dude, you're going after a small percentage. Now they're there, they exist. But the big markets are hunting markets, right. And so,
if you're making manufacturing ARs back when we thought Hillary Clinton was going to win, you were banking,
Yeah,
well, that's why
money at that time.
Yeah. That's why Remington went out of business because of that. They were banking Hillary Clinton was going to win, and they put all kinds of money into that company right before the election. If you guys remember, they went bankrupt twice. The final time they finally failed. The first time they went bankrupt and then recovered for a short amount of time and then went bankrupt again. But that. In 2017 was the first bankruptcy, and it was because they put all their eggs in the basket that Hillary was going to win, and that fear again of banning guns, and then Trump got in, and they were like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah. The fear factor. I mean, obviously you still get the fear factor, right? So I mean, ammunition goes up, self-defense weapons go up, I don't think we ever want to be, focusing on that. I think we're in a really good niche. I think, customers love our rifles because a lot of people that spend money coming to Montana, right? They're spending $10,000 to $20,000 to come kill an elk. I mean, they're going to make sure it's right. It's going to make a trip. The worst thing that happens is that you climb up the mountains. You just got done buying a $7,000, $10,000 rifle. You spent $10,000 to $20,000 on a hunt. you know, you're busting ass to get up this mountain, and then you miss, you know, and it happens. It's most likely, yeah. I mean, and you find out it wasn't human error. You find out, well, this rifle sucked because it can't hold a group. And, you know, I should have never bought this, you know, Remington or Winchester off the shelf. You know, I should have went with something like that I can depend on in any situation. And yeah, it's a real thing. Like you go and you know, there's a reason Q1 for us is our busiest time of the year. Our sales are double Q1 because some hunter went out there, missed an elk of a lifetime.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
stat.
and they're like, yeah,
That's
exactly.
a crazy stat.
Yeah, and they're like, man, this sucks. Like, I should have never bought this, you know, Christensen, or, you know, I won't try to dog every. Who else can I throw out? You know, yeah. So,
Well, honestly, even like more so than that, it's like the proper training with your firearm.
Right.
I mean, you got to think. I mean, even if a rifle holds, you know, 1 MOA, you know, still if you're trying to shoot 600 yards, that's only a 6-inch group, you know, technically. And so like you still should be able to put that bullet where it needs to go. And so I'm full advocate of selling high-end rifles and making sure it's the last rifle you'll need for the rest of your life. But we're also, you know, advocates of, hey, get your shit and go train with it, because that's going to be the true difference.
That's a good point. I don't know if you have any, but might be a good segue into your precision hunter development course.
Yeah, talk about that. I didn't know you guys were even offering training, but yeah, let's talk about that.
So our PhD is our precision hunter development course, and we've been doing, this is going to be our 5th annual course coming up in June. And we take students and we extend their effective range and their ethical range to, you know, engage animals. And so, like I said, our rifles are capable of the absolute best precision out to as far as you want to shoot. However, you know, they're going to do what they're told. The rifles are going to do exactly what they're told to do. And so if you do not have that knowledge base, then it's probably not going to work out in your advantage. You know, we hear it all the time, people going out and missing it, you know, 400 or 500 yards. Well, you know, it's not the rifle. It's not the rifle. It might be, you know, maybe your gear wasn't set up correctly. You know, I mean, a small percentage of the time it is actually the rifle. You know, your scope's not holding 0, something goes wrong, right? Most of the time it is shooter error.
Or just they don't know like how to read wind. You know,
Right.
that's a big one, right? Especially when you've got, you know, shooting over a canyon or something.
Yeah.
That's a tough thing to do.
Exactly.
Everything may go right. You may, you know how to, you know, adjust your scope, but if you don't know how the wind's moving, you're not going to make that shot.
Right. And it's, you know, I've talked to outfitters and guides. They're like, man, this guy came out from Texas. He had a Remington 700 30-06 with a, you know, a loopholed scope on top with a standard reticle. That's right. So he's essentially, you know, that elk's out there at 400, 500 yards. He's just holding over the back and guessing. It's a educated, wild ass guess, right?
When you're shooting that far away, there's a lot of things that come into play.
Yeah.
Like spin drift is a thing. You know, at 500-600 yards, you got to understand what that really means and what that looks like. You've got to have shot that before and like seen that little shift at that distance to know, okay, that does make a difference.
All of it makes a difference. I mean, you go from Texas to the top of a mountain in Montana, your elevation is way off. Right. And so you start looking at, you know, temperatures, altitude, barometric pressure, all this, when it all comes into play, it can make a huge difference. So you may not notice it at 300 yards, you may not notice at 400 yards. Well, you start changing all these atmospherics, it's all going to add up. And that bullet's not going to go where you think it's going to go. Yeah. So having the right optic with the right rifle and the right cartridge is absolutely, you know, imperative.
How often?
But training with that.
How often do you see a customer walk in, buy this expensive, awesome rifle and just be like, I don't need the training?
It happens often, and we try to, you know, say, you know, here's our experience, here's what our customers have experienced. We recommend that you don't have to do it through us. Go through whoever you want to, as long as they're reputable and they know what they're talking about. Go learn, go train. And so with PhD, it is angled towards hunters. And so we're taking you and we're putting you on, when we start off, you know, mechanics of the rifle, you know, full nomenclature of the rifle, what every little piece is, and then what they do in your sequence of when you get down behind the gun to shoot it. Like, how does everything work? All right. So yeah, we start at the bare basics. We build your foundation, body positioning, your rifle to body connection, eye relief, What do all those little hash marks in your scope mean? How do you utilize your equipment as efficiently and effectively as possible, right? And then we get you off your belly. Once you've established that baseline, right, that foundation, we get you off your belly and we start getting into positional shooting. Like we're shooting off of tripods out of the standing. We're utilizing the gear and the equipment you're actually going to have with you on the mountain, not a 15-pound sandbag on a concrete platform or slab with a perfect bipod placement. You know, like that is so unrealistic.
Never happens.
So yes, of course you can shoot 1,000 yards, right? You've got all the time in the world. You're not out of breath. You've got everything stable, right?
Everything's flat.
Everything's flat. Like, yeah, of course you can hit a freaking 20-inch steel plate. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so we get you out of that mindset of like, this is how my shot's going to be, because maybe 10% of the time, that's how your shot's going to be. You're usually going to be in some screwed up position on the side of a mountain. You're going to be out of breath. Like you're going to be breathing heavy. Your heart's going to be pounding through your chest. You've got, a minute to shoot this elk before it disappears off into the timber. Like you have to fall back to your training in order for that all to come together in the way that you want it to. And so utilizing your gear as efficiently and effectively as possible, and training with that. And then also at the end of that course, we're putting on a 3-station competition. You remember this.
Yep.
So now we're going to induce some stress. Now we're actually going to put you into that situation that you're going to be in when it comes time to shoot that animal. So you're moving around, you're getting in a weird position that we teach you how to do, utilizing your equipment. And so with that, people that were hitting 1,000 yards out of the prone easily are now having issues shooting a 10-inch plate at 500 yards. Which would be super easy if you're in the prone on a bipod with a rear support bag.
Yeah.
Well, that's teaching them their limitations as well, right? So we're advocates of ethical hunting. Having the ability to teach them those limitations, when they get out to the mountain, they're like, man, I'm really not that stable. They're not going to take that shot, which is what we want, right? Stop wounding animals. We need to, because you shoot an elk through the guts, that thing's going to run miles and miles and miles. It's going to die on somebody else's property. The rancher's going to go out there and find it, or you're going to have to get onto that rancher's property. That's a bad look for hunters.
For sure.
We are the forward-facing element of the hunting industry, and we don't need to give the people who hate what we do any ammunition to use against us. So, it is absolutely imperative that.
I think that was good. Was that the first one or the second one that you had? The first one, I think. So the focus on the ethical part of it, right? I was like blown away by, hey man, like, these guys are good at what they do, but they also really care about the industry and about the ethics behind this. Just because you can hit 1,000-yard steel plate, or so you think, and, oh man, I could probably bag an elk at 1,000 yards. I hit this. Doesn't mean you should.
Right.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should, right? And there's a lot of things that come into that, right? Now, after you do that course, you start thinking, man, I did that 500-yard shot after hiking up that hill, throwing my pack down. Maybe that's the elk that I encounter. Should I take this shot? I don't know. You think twice about it,
Right.
So that's pretty cool.
Well, it gives you a good baseline of training to go off of. So it's like you learn your limitations. All right, now how can I improve upon myself so that, because I know plenty of guys that go out. We've done it. We've killed animals 800, over 1,000 yards. Like that is super rare when that opportunity actually presents itself, because everything has to be perfect. And it's like, if you train, you know how to read wind, how to get on your ballistic solver, input all the correct information to where it's all math, right? But like the wind is the humbler of all, right? Wind can change so much, so fast.
Yes.
And so, if there's zero wind and you can plant that round where it needs to go at 800, 900 yards, and you're confident in that, do it. You know what I mean? But if there's any kind of doubt in your mind, like you have to really sit back, set your ego aside and be like, is it worth wounding this animal?
Unless it's a coyote. If it's a coyote.
We'll smoke a coyote. Every hunt becomes a coyote hunt.
Well, I think I remember Rick had his rifle set up and kind of that, like, just so you guys know, you guys are missing targets. It's mostly human error. And he had it set up on the tripod, literally had it all sighted in, dialed in on this target, and he just basically stood away from the rifle, pulled the trigger without looking through the optic, and that target had to been, it was easy 1,000 yards, because it was a second before you heard it ping. And he's like, I wasn't looking, I had everything sighted in, but then I just pulled the trigger like off to the side, and it still hit. Like, this rifle will do what you want it to do as long as you're
It was 1,190 yards.
Yeah, I remember.
And the rifle set up, at full height on a tripod.
Yeah.
We just looked through the scope, dialed the elevation, stood off to the side, and just did a perfect rearward press on the trigger. Gun recoils, rocks back forward, ding.
Yeah.
The gun's going to do exactly what it's told to do.
Right.
We are the ones who screw everything up.
Yeah,
right?
the variable is the human.
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
And it shows that too. And that was their point behind, what they did is the fact that, man, you just put one finger on the trigger, hold behind the rifle, push it, recoil, it's dead on. It's when you're climbing up mountains, your heart rate's going, you're out of breath, you're like, all right, calm down, and it's like trying to get in that position and calm yourself down. And that's the thing. Like, that's why most hunters, I believe, miss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the better events I've ever been to, man. First class, like the catered food. Like if you were a beginner or you were advanced, there was something for you. Great instructor cadre of just people that really knew like real world, real life experience, and easily the information was, I'll say it for me, not for everybody, it dumbed down enough to where I was like, oh, all right, I guess that makes sense. Okay, yeah, I can do that. I mean, this is fairly complex information that you're trying to teach someone that has no experience in this. You guys, military guys go, okay, yeah, I know what that means. We're all sitting here going, I'm not sure what that is. What did he? But like the information was given, and then okay, what I mean by that for some of you folks is this. Oh shit, okay, I got that. All right, so that was run very well.
Here's a good point too, because you were there at the first competition. Who was the one that came first? So just put in perspective, right? So we had a bunch of BRCC guys, and we had a bunch of Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Rangers, Marines.
Yeah.
We had all these guys, right?
1 and 2 were
Of course, the Navy
first,
SEALs
second
came
were female.
first.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
We had I think 10 guys out there and 2 gals.
Yeah.
So who was first and second?
First and second, both females.
Yeah, that's
Nikki
right.
and Kate, yeah.
Yeah.
Nikki and Kate Pate.
Yep.
Yeah. And that was everybody was like, oh man. It's like, well, that's why putting your ego aside. Women, man, they are so easy to teach because they freaking listen. Men are the most difficult creatures.
Masculine
What
thing that
I
we're
found
trying
is
Yeah.
women will listen provided it's not their husband giving them instructions.
There you go.
Like,
There you go.
I teach my wife to shoot 1,000 yards right now. If I try to do it, she'd yell at me.
I don't think you're. That's not right.
You're stupid. You know what I'm talking about. Babe, look, you can admit that I'm right once, right? No? Fuck, okay.
If not, you got to get it on video.
Yeah.
Yeah, for these PhDs too, like two of the things I want to mention is one, you don't have to have a Scout rifle. I mean, we want you to feel comfortable behind whatever rifle you have, right? So, bring whatever gear you have, and we'll set you up and make sure that you're comfortable behind the gear that you have. And then 2, we do a bear defense class, and Rick Crawley from Achilles Hill Tactical does that. And so that was a stellar class too. So, which is a real thing in Montana, right? I think being prepared for bears, grizzlies, especially.
Do you give your customers, your rifle customers, discounts or any specialty placement in these PhD courses?
Yeah, so we do basically, if you come to our PhD course, we give you 15% off everything Scout for the rest of your life. Actually, give you a coin.
Yeah.
Do you still have that coin?
Mm-hmm.
We give you a coin. If you present us with that coin or a picture of that coin, we know you legit
People
went
love
to one
that
of our
stuff,
courses.
man. Like,
Yeah, man.
Yeah. We were just talking about that though. You finally get to a point, I understand guys buying a rifle off the shelf when you're 20, you're in college, whatever. I get that. And I think, part of, with Graybow, that's part of the thing. We want everybody to be able to afford a nice rifle stock. But at a certain point, then I'm at the point now where if I go buy a new truck, there's things it's going to have non-negotiable, right? Like there's my new truck has a heated steering wheel. The guy's like, oh, it's got a heated steering wheel. I don't care about that.
called bougie.
Pretty nice. Pretty nice. Yeah. So now, as you get a little bit older, you can start affording stuff. You make a little bit more money. Now you get to the point where, like, look, there's no flex on some of this stuff. I have to have this, and that's where you guys come in, right? Like, hey, man, I could go buy a Ruger American, not to knock those guys, but having a custom rifle, even mine, mine's a custom rifle, but like, man, some of the guns you had out there that I was able to shoot, and mine, again, I think mine's a nice rifle, but man, there's a major difference in the attention to detail and the things that you guys do. And that's, now it's like, okay, well, when I'm in the market to buy a new rifle, I know who's going to build it, like it's no question. So,
well, whenever you're ready, let us know.
yeah,
I bet you we can find a stock around here somewhere to put on.
I think I know a guy.
Yeah.
I think I know a guy.
Yeah. On your PhD courses, are you guys talking about specifically about an animal? Like, when you do a course, is it like these are the elk hunters and these guys are the bear hunters? Or is it kind of everybody and maybe you kind of give some unique advice to those guys?
I mean, it's everybody, because anybody, it doesn't matter if you're hunting in, the thickest brush down in South Georgia, or you're, hunting out here in Arizona where it's just like flat, right? Like you can shoot a long ways or you can shoot 50 yards, right? You're going to learn something. Mm-hmm. And what we're doing is setting you up because, I'm a whitetail hunter from Georgia, and I came out here. It is different. Your close shots with a rifle are 300, 400 yards most of the time. And so it's like there's a big learning curve there. And so for those people, that want to come out from Texas, we got people from Florida, Texas, California, Maine, everywhere across the country coming out to these courses because they may not always hunt whitetail. They might fly out for an elk hunt. They may just want to learn how to effectively, engage targets at extended distances just for fun. But you're going to learn something. And as far as like those people, what was it? William Simpson that came out from Texas, right? He sits in a box blind most of the time and shoots 300 yards down a sendero. That's the furthest he's going to shoot with a perfectly supported position, right? He came out, we built him a 30 Nosler, one of our hyperlight H&T 26s, and he was just like blown away by, how different the shooting was out here. And then later, 5 months later, he went to Spain on an ibex hunt, and the most steepest, gnarliest terrain that you can go into and try to kill something in. And he ended up shooting that ibex off of his tripod out of the standing position across a canyon. And he called us when he came back. He was like, dude, if I had not gone to your course, there's no way I would have connected on this animal. So he's from Texas, as flat as it gets, right? And
as far as you can see. And he's been back a couple times.
Yeah.
So, he's taking the course, 2 or 3 years in a row. So
yeah, continued education. You can, every time, it's like watching a movie over and over. You start picking up little things that you never saw before, right? So continue your education, and it's just going to set you up for success.
So as busy as you guys are with this business and the training and everything that you guys do, you moved into Schnee's, and do you guys find time to hunt yourselves?
We're trying to plan that out next hunting season.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Schnee's is open 7 days a week. Mm-hmm. So, and there's some other changes that are happening too, because there's a saloon going in the same facility.
We gotta go. Like I
Sold the deal.
Like our kind of
so it's going to be, and I'm putting in a plug for John, I guess, at this point, but it's going to be an open concept. So the saloon is going to be called the Stockman Saloon. And so basically, you go in there.
It's like it's his name.
Yeah. And it's going to have apparently like big barn doors that separate the store from the saloon, and so you freaking go grab a whiskey and shop and drink, and so it's going to be a cool concept, like downtown Bozeman. So so with that happening and some other things, I think we can make it work. But I'm trying to go back to your question. So what was?
You guys hunt? You guys get to hunt? Or are you so busy?
Yeah.
You guys...
We're talking about whiskey.
Yeah.
We got a little sidetracked. All right, let's close it up here.
Yeah.
Let's go drinking.
That's right.
We got a couple flights out there right now.
So 7 days a week. That's 7 days a week. So we want to find a time, and we're going to use the floor and we'll do it.
Yeah.
I think we'll have after our so busy and it's so high, and then we'll have at least 2 full-time employees before hunting season. That's their ultimate goal, right?
That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, so that we do spend more time out in the woods and up in the mountains, and so that's that's what our company's about, right? It's like we got to go out and test our equipment and the things that we're putting together. So it's research and development right there, R&D.
What's funny is we mostly just end up archery hunting.
Yeah,
we do. Yeah, well, we did kill your giant pronghorn antelope this year with a rifle, and that was your first. That was your first
antelope.
Western big game animal ever, and it was
Can you consider that big game?
I mean, it's medium game.
Medium game?
Yeah, it was a big medium game.
Yeah.
I mean, it was what, 6 inches under Boone and Crockett.
Yeah.
The first one.
Public land.
Freaking rad.
Yeah, it was a super fun trip. You know, just to enjoy that. But if you ever go watch the video, it's hunting it's about the camaraderie. It's about the the military. That's the biggest thing. Like that's why I think most people, because I enjoyed that camaraderie. With relying on your brothers, and with hunting is the same way. Kind of bring us back. Good memories.
Yeah, it takes I think hunting, it takes you back to this kind of primitive time where we live in this just digital age. And you go with your kids or something, your young boys or something like that. And you get this sense that you're out in nature, and there's this huge responsibility when you're trying to kill an animal. And when you're teaching yourself and your children, like huge amounts of responsibility that you cannot teach them in, city life. And so I think it's so important for dads, and their boys, and even girls too, if they're into it. Some girls aren't. My girls aren't. And I've talked to some other people. The girls are like, I don't want to go hunting, but dads and their boys especially, they kind of learn responsibility and to kind of get back to nature and get back to kind of like this. This is how people lived for a long time. They hunt for their food, and this is we've got it good here, but this is, don't ever take it for granted type of situation.
Yeah, and just to follow that up, it's even where the meat's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
From the
grocery store, right?
From the grocery, yeah. Well, that's an unsuccessful hunt
from a burger.
Yeah,
it's fresh, never frozen.
Yeah. But I think it's a good time. Like I think besides the camaraderie, it's the fact that we know where this meat's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And we're feeding our communities with it, right? And I think it's not injected with GMOs and all this other stuff that we're not aware of. So to provide for my family, one, and knowing where it came from, to this healthiest possible source that I could provide for my family.
Yeah, I talk about that. Like I think one of man's greatest, one of the things that he does that is like it's core to our being is provide, right? Yeah. Protect and provide are the two things. Provide, and when you go hunting, it's like it's back to the foundations of providing. It's like this raw. When we go to work and we make money, it kind of feels like this cheap way of providing, right? But like when you go out and you kill an animal, you look it in the eye and you say, you shoot that arrow, you shoot that bullet at it, and you take its life. There's a huge amount of responsibility that comes with that, and that providing and an ability to provide for your family in that way is so different than it is when you're just showing up to work and making a paycheck.
Well, it's satisfying. How satisfying are you as a man to work in a grocery store and grab a shelf that somebody else killed and somebody else provided? So I think going out there, because hunting is not cheap. The first thing, right? I mean, you're going to put forth some effort to make this. So it's the effort too. It's like, man, you got to get up early in the morning, right? And sit in the freezing cold, or and find a spot. And not everything's going to work out exactly how you planned it in your head. And there's all these variables that's going to play out. And then if you get that opportunity finally after a week of hunting, and then you miss your shot, right? So, but that time that you put in an effort, the energy, the resources, and then you get that bull of a lifetime. Or heck, let's just call it a cow. Let's just say you get like whatever.
Yeah.
With the satisfaction that you get out of that, like that's something that you will cherish for the rest of your life, especially if you bring your children with you. Mm-hmm. So this last hunt brought our oldest, so 14 years old. First antelope hunt he's ever been on. Dude, absolutely love it.
Like our oldest. How do I not know?
Yeah. Hold on. Say it again. Just look very sweetly at him with the.
Is there a backstory behind that one? But yeah, I think with that.
Yeah. You can't say what we just said and then say
too late now. Got out of the bag.
Yeah,
that's definitely staying in.
Yeah, don't say there's a backstory.
No, and the satisfaction behind that, like my wife and I, with our 10-year-old, like he's at home like practicing elk calls, and he's driving us nuts. Most kids want to bang on a drum. He's out there freaking elk call and trying to learn what noises like, and he was really freaking good at it. So we take him along on our hunts and have him the opportunity to talk back and forth with elk, and and so he has a blast. So that's what it's about, man. It's passing it down to the next generation. And so we're about that. We're not only about ethical hunting, we're about making sure that next generation that we're raising is like what we want out of our children. So
it's very important.
It's
very important. Maybe the most important thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, you have children, and so it's doing that for them. I'm assuming that you do as well. So cool.
My biggest issue is that my wife is an extreme animal lover.
Oh,
not like a PETA, like just an extreme animal lover. So she feels like if she pulls a piece of meat off the shelf that somebody else killed. Well, I never had to know that was a baby cow at one point.
Yeah.
If you kill it and you bring it home, I know that was a baby. So she's like super. So I was like, that's a little bit of a challenge, but
will she eat it?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. She doesn't want to see eyeballs and stuff.
She doesn't want to know that I killed it. Like if somebody else killed it, or I said, babe, I found this dead on the side of the road, and I just threw it in the truck and we got some meat out of it, she'd probably be okay with it. She doesn't want to know that I killed it.
She won't look at you the same? Is that
she's just? I mean, dude, like extreme animal lover. She likes cats. She actually likes. Sorry, I know your wife does too. I don't like cats, but like she won't kill flies. She gets like she'll take spiders. She'll put them back outside. Like extreme animal lover. Yeah, or critter lover, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
but
I mean, honestly, man, like I love animals too. Like I have a huge respect for animals.
Yeah.
Huge respect for animals. I think that, hunters kind of get a bad name, a bad reputation for just being murderers and all that, right?
Yeah.
Well, I've been killing my own animals for meat since I was old enough to carry a rifle through the woods. And it's still an emotional experience, like still to this day. Like I kill something, and it's emotional. You just took one of the most purest forms of life left on this earth. You just took its life selfishly to feed yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like that's a big freaking deal. Mm-hmm. It's like one of the most. You watch a deer, you watch an elk. I mean, they're absolutely beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful creatures. And like, how could you not love these critters? But they're also a wonderful source of protein. They're delicious, and back to this, it's the camaraderie, right? It's like as men, for as far back as we can go, we've been hunting together to provide for our families.
Yeah. Well, and it's a more humane life and death than it would be if it was a cow just butchered at some, I mean, it's not, those cows aren't living glorious lives.
No,
what I mean, they're not happy. They're not,
think about like the first animal you've ever killed, right? Oh, emotional it was for you. And my 10-year-old shot one last year. You forget about some of the stuff like that. And so he shot a whitetail at Montana, and he was just, at 10 years old, you can't control your emotions. He just started crying. He's like, I don't know what to do with these emotions. Like but he was happy, but he was also torn emotionally, how to process this. Right. So, but it's a, once again, going back to that, it's like that time that I get to spend with my children out in the woods or up in the mountains. That's something they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. Yeah. Those emotions, they play out, and stuff that we'll remember for years to come.
And it's this, it's the memories, but it's this certain responsibility. And I don't even know how to articulate it well, but there's a certain level of responsibility that you learn from doing it as a young boy, I think, and what your place is on this earth and where others' places are and how to respect life. And there's so many things that come with killing an animal that most of the people on the outside who are anti, hunting think that we're just like animals and we're trying to, we're just going to go out and savagely. Like there is a lot of emotion and there's a lot of responsibility wrapped up in taking an animal's life. And that I think builds us as humans even more than just buying a piece of meat from a grocery store.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to let your child sit there and play on a warfare on a freaking Nintendo all day long and kill away. And and I didn't want that for my kids. I mean, they play video games, I'm wrong, but they're not sitting there for hours a day. I want to be outside. I mean, how I grew up. Right? And teach them ethical hunting, and teach them the responsibility of a firearm, which is another thing, right? And I think and hopefully it's not a dying trait. I'm hoping that there's enough fathers and others out there that are spending time with their children and teaching them like the right way to do this, because I had that growing up. You had that growing up, assuming we all did at some point in our lives. And so we don't want that to be a dying trait, or, to be something that's not going to continue to go on for, until we pass away, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, and speaking of that, like growing up with that, right? Like, kind of comes full circle. So this past September, when we went elk hunting, had my 73-year-old father with us on opening day of archery season. 73. And this man is climbing up things that he has no business climbing up at 73 years old.
He's got 7 stints in his heart. He's had
like the guy is a freaking beast, man. He had trained, like he knew he was coming out in September, and so he just started training for it. He's got his trekking poles, and he's climbing up like steep grades, climbing over deadfall logs, loose rock. 73, and we're doing miles in some of the most ridiculous terrain ever. And so it was cool to, I remember following in his, footprints as a child, right? Mm-hmm. Barely old enough to carry a freaking gun through the woods. And I'm like, I just remember following him through everything. And, this year, got up to the top of this ridge, and it was steep, it was gnarly. We were after this bull that we just found, and I looked down the hill, and it's like down the hill. Straight down the hill. And I get to the top, I'm like, that sucked. This was hard. And I just, for my mind, from my whole memory of my father and, everything he was capable of, right? That's what he expressed and showed to me as the man, right? Of like, you have to be capable to be able to do these things. And I just got up this hill. I'm worn out. I'm out of breath. I look down the hill, and he's just trucking right up this thing at 73 years old. And that gave me like a goal, right? I'm 36 now. I hope when I'm 63 years old that he's 63, wasn't it? No, 73.
73.
He's 73. 73 years old. It's like, that blows my mind to look back at my father, and he's 73 climbing up these. It's insane to me.
I feel like that's like, hearing your story, I'm like, that's the pinnacle of manhood. You're 73. This is my boy still. I'm gonna go hunt with my boy, and I still got to I still got to make sure he knows I'm a man and I can do this, and I'm proud of him, and he needs to be proud of me, and like all this manhood, all this macho-ness that we have for each other and our sons and our fathers, and like, you can't, he couldn't show that weakness. He's got to go do it. He's always done it. He always will do it, and he's doing it for you, man. It just makes me like. It makes me a little teary-eyed, because I can imagine me and my son were that old. I'm old. My son's like, hey, Dad, come on and hunt with me. I got 3 months to train. I'm going to train as hard as I can so I get out there and show my son that I still have it, right? Like, there's no more motivation than to show your son that you aren't laid up in bed or something, that you're still a man that he's always looked up to. Yeah. What a cool thing.
And that's the man that got me into shooting and hunting and everything outdoors, right? Mm-hmm. And so having that growing up is such a blessing now, because it's still something that we got to do together.
Yeah.
At 73, just like we're at 7,600 feet of elevation, just flew in from Georgia, and is just trucking up this effing mountain, dude.
Toe for toe. I mean, he was keeping up for us. Yeah.
I was blown away, because I almost decided not to go up this hill, because I was like, I don't want him to have to climb this. I don't want to climb this. And just right behind us the whole way.
Yeah. That's the other great thing about like the hunting lifestyle, is just doing hard things like that, right? Even if you don't get that bull, like the grind of that hunt is something that you always remember. It's like it's sucks that you didn't get what you came for, but it was a good time, right? You were out there with your old man. You guys were out there, just the camaraderie. But like, everything's so easy in life now. I want meat. Cool, man. I just run. I actually don't even have to run to Fry's. I just get on my phone.
Order it.
Deliver me a steak. 3 minutes later, somebody comes and puts it in your hand, and you put it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so. And I've heard my kids before say like, "Oh, I can't do this." Well, did you try? Of course I tried. Did you try? Well, no. What you did is you thought, this is hard. I don't think I can do this. So you just said, I can't do it, because Dad will come in and get the drill out and scream. Like, no, dude. Like, let's go. Let's do some hard things. So kids are definitely missing that these days, that, your dad is 73, so, hey man, let's get it on, let's do this. And that knew that this is going to be tough, but we're gonna do this. We're gonna get through it. We're gonna grind. You know.
Yeah, one thing that you said was like he prepared for it, right? He was in the gym, he was working out, he knew like it was not going to lose him.
Yeah.
And like, moving out to Montana, like have you heard of Mountain Tough before?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean these guys like they are hardcore like hunters. Like they train every day throughout the off season to prepare for hunting. Like it is it's an online app. You know, you go in there and you train with them. You know, it's an niche. Dustin and Deep Enderfer. Did I say that right?
Enderfer.
Yeah. So he started. He found that niche, and it's been exceptionally, like good for him to be able to go out there and to provide a service that has never been done before. Because and even even after this past hunting season, like dude, I'm sucking. Man. Like I'm like, yeah, we get up the top of this mountain, but we're at the top of it. Yeah. Well, it just snowed the day before, and I'm not used to like trucking up, 1,000 elevation and get to the top. I'm like, and so I'm out of wind and I'm out of flash. I was like, it's like there's a bull over there. Oh God! I was like, man, there's no way I could shoot this thing right now because I'm like, my heart rate's so high, and I'm thinking. My butt needs to be in the gym every day. And we have been every day after hunting season. We've been in the gym, working out, preparing for next season.
I think Cam Hanes, he's like the kind of the forefront of a big name in hunting that just does that. He's always training. He films himself training. He films himself shooting. And somehow, like I'm sure there's thousands of people who do that, but somehow he's become this kind of central figure for being in shape, being, a hunter. So like I would, we talked yesterday a little bit when we went to dinner about some of these guys like, Joe Rogan and Cam Hanes and Jocko Willink, who, they go out and they bow hunt or they hunt and they really bring this hunting to, which used to be this kind of niche, good old boy industry to the world. And so, but yeah, Cam Hanes being that guy who's like out there training every single day. I mean, he's got a podcast where they run up this mountain with a rock.
Yeah. The guy's an absolute animal. Like that would be, anybody who runs ultra marathons like on the reg is, that's going to be a hard man to hunt with. He can probably get back to places that not every average human will go.
Well, I remember when you're growing up, you think of hunting as almost like you get in a blind or you're not going very far, but then you start to see like what type of shape this guy's in. Why is he in such good shape? What is he doing that the rest of us aren't? And then he starts to film some of his hunts and how close he has to get with the bow and the type of terrain he's in. And you're like, holy cow, this is insane. And, the fact of when you pull your bow back and how you want your breath to be, calm. So you have to be in super good shape so that when you're hiking, you're not out of breath and your heart rate's not crazy. So when you do get that one opportunity, you can actually make that true shot. And so you're like, wow, this is insane. Like, this is way next level than I ever thought hunting was. This good old boy, like, kind of 300-pounder out there. No, that's not how it is anymore, man. Everybody's trying to get in shape. And
also, it's the more, like we talked about, the more and more people that get into this, the more and more competition you have out in the mountains. So it's like you've got to go deeper and further than anybody's willing to go if you really, truly want to get into a situation where the elk are not so tainted by human influence, right? And so these guys are going 8 to 10 miles back into territory that's not seen by everybody.
Well, it's also cool too to like be in uncharted territory. I think there's probably a certain part of the hunting population that like that's the intriguing.
Yeah, that's very intriguing. I love that.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about with the archery, like I love archery hunting. I prefer archery hunting just because you are in their face, you're in their zone. It is hard. Your success rate will go through the floor, but your skill level just goes through the roof, right? You have to be, and you have to learn to be a predator to get within bow range of an animal. And that is in itself just a challenge in its own, getting in close, right? Well, he said you got to calm everything down. Let me tell you, man, your heart's going to be pounding through your chest. You're going to be out of breath. It don't matter if you've been sitting there for 45 minutes. You're going to feel like you just ran a marathon when that animal finally presents you with the opportunity to kill it with a bow, right? And then like antelope archery hunting is, especially spot and stalk. I feel like anybody can do it out of a blind, but you really want to test your skills as a hunter, as a predator, go spot and stalk antelope with a bow. It is the most aggravating thing on earth. And you will fail and fail and fail and fail and fail. And then it all finally comes together, all the stars align, all your preparation finally comes in, and then you blow it. Like, you talk about the most anguish you can go through. It's like, I have spent so much time and effort and training to get to this position, and then you just screw it up.
We talk about getting back to like your primitive roots, right? I mean, there, you can't get much closer than that. With a bow, you got to get within 100 yards, I'd imagine, right? I mean,
You got to get in. With the
closer.
Antelope are tiny.
Tiny, yeah. So depending on the animal, you got to get close. And you've got this bow, you're flinging this stick through the air with like this, this kind of razor blade at the end that's wobbling all over the place. And, I get the sense that that's this close to this kind of primitive man that we can never get back to.
Yeah,
sure.
let's don't forget that after you let that arrow go or you pull that trigger, like that's where the real work begins, right? That's when you're packing it out. That's going back to be primitive. You're 8 miles back in the woods, and now you're packing this thing out. Like,
yeah, I mean, even just going up to, and once you've killed the animal and you start to harvest it, like, just having to be inside that animal and pulling the guts out and getting the meat and understanding how to get all that stuff itself is like, most people think about like, and you're kind of grossed out. I remember the first time that I had to do that, and like, but you get so focused, like you're like a different human when you're hunting. You've gotten this animal, you've got this responsibility we talked about. Now my job is to make sure that I harvest as much of this animal as I can. And so you're in there digging out guts, and you're taking off the back strap, and you're cutting the head off so you can get the mount, and and you're just doing it. It's like a job almost, it feels like. Like, it's like, this is my responsibility right now. I'm not thinking about how gross this stomach cavity is.
You're not thinking about work. You're not thinking about anything else. It's like the more time you spend out there on that hunt, you just kind of like melt into the landscape as just, not so much of a human. You just kind of like turn into an animal yourself. You're getting back to the roots of who you are as a man. And the further away from civilization you are, you have no self-service. You forget about everything else, and you're truly honed in and focused as a predator of what you're trying to do, right? And I think that's one of my favorite parts about it. Like this last year, I got lucky enough to hunt antelope with a bow, and I was fortunate enough to shoot one. I got into 24 yards. Last year, the year before, the closest I could get was 63 yards, and that was after 11 failed stalks over the span of a week and a half. Talk about wanting to slam your head against a rock, right? Like, you've got this animal you're after, and you just fail and fail and fail and fail. It all finally comes together, right? So in that process, your mind has turned into a different creature. You are now a different animal, right? And you are so focused on hunting that you start to really forget about everything else. And I think that's the separation that men like they thrive on. We thrive on it. Women too. Like, you separate yourself from all of your other worries, everything else, and you're solely focused on this one thing. I think that's why we love it, and because it actually brings you back to your roots.
Do you think there's a supernatural element to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think we're supposed to live the way that we do now. Right. Everything, like you said, everything's so easy. Everything's just presented right in front of us 100% of the time at the click of a button. And so as you start to dissipate from that and engage yourself in that element of what you're actually doing at the time, and you're on the hunt for food, for meat, it changes a lot of things.
It's weird. It's this amazing connection to nature.
Absolutely.
To whatever we all want to call it. We're all Christians here. God. I have a physics degree, so there's some physics element to that, whatever that means. But you just get this sense like you're in these environments that you pull yourself out of an everyday environment of work and computers, and you get back to these like basic primitive things that you do, and then things are different. It's hard to explain. It's almost like supernatural. That's why I don't know how to even articulate it, but you get the sense that there's something different, like at a fundamental level.
you feel how small you are in the world too. When you're out in the woods, you're like, man, look at what God's created.
Yeah.
Like, look how big these freaking mountains are. These trees, the rivers, the ponds, like all this stuff. You're in nature. Like nothing else matters in that moment. Nothing. It is. It's a way that most hunters, I think, will cope with lying. Just the quietness of everything. It's just so quiet. You're trying to get so quiet, and you're just trying to, like, it's peaceful, it's relaxing. Especially once going back to if you're in shape and you enjoy, the trip, and you're not sucking wind like I was on this last one.
Focus.
Yeah, like that's another reason. Like, you want to enjoy that experience, right? And you want to go as deep and go through some other stuff like you normally wouldn't go through. Like, that's why people prepare a whole year for hunting season, because they're want to get out there and freaking like get out there where nobody else will go. And that's why our antelope was so successful, because we went so far out of the way. Like, nobody was there. We, had an incredible time. Like,
we had to get outside the box on a couple of those
animals.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to go a long ways to get that antelope. So, and it was like, once again, like a memory, a moment in life that I'll never forget. But nothing else mattered in that moment. So that's why we love what we do.
Yeah. It's a cool industry to be in. It's a cool, firearms, hunting. This whole industry is a really unique, and it's evolved so much over the last 10 or 15 years. Like I mentioned, there's so many really good people, like good, honest people that are, in this industry.
And it's a small industry. Everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
You gotta be careful what you say, what you do. Like, don't like being a dirtbag. Like, you get your name out there. People will talk. So you be careful what you do. That's just something. But yeah, you want to be ahead of the curve. Like, you want to make sure that you're keeping up with everything in this industry. If not, we'll be left behind. So
always moving forward to the next best thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think innovation, that's the key. I mean, there's a lot of keys, but like even if you have a good product, but if you're not constantly trying to reinvent yourself and do something new, you're going to get left behind. I mean, especially in a quickly evolving industry like we're in. So it's just always trying to find that next thing that people are after, and tapping into the people who are doing it every single day, like the hunters or the different shooters, competition shooters, trying to figure out what they need, what's the next thing that they need. And it doesn't take a lot. Sometimes one feature, like for us on a stock, could be the difference between an absolutely successful stock and a not successful stock. Like the Arca rail right now, super, super important to have. But that's just one feature of many that, it's kind of like the first people who came out with that are, really were successful with that. So
that's why we appreciate like what you guys do. You guys are always innovating. Like from the beginning, we've been utilizing gray bow stocks because you guys, it seems like as soon as you get something done and it's perfect and all that, you're already into the next thing, and you're consistently and continuously moving forward to the next best thing. And like we dig that.
Yeah.
So that's why
that's the fun part of business. That's the fun part of the business, right? Like we get to go do stuff and make cool new stuff and see what people think, put your ideas out there and see if people are interested in them. So yeah, I mean, that's the fun part. The hard parts are like managing finances and inventory management and all the people. people, just sum it up, people. So, well, I don't know. That was pretty awesome. I think we got to one topic out of like 3 or 4 that we were going to get to, and pretty much stuck on that the whole time.
He did manage to tell you that he has a physics degree. He does that all the time. He's like, "Hey, can you do this for me?" I'm like, "I don't really have time." He goes, "I have a physics degree."
By the way, just in case you didn't know,
I don't know if you know this, but I have a physics degree. Fine, all right,
come on. I'm kind of important.
Check out the big brain all right over here. All right.
Okay, let's work on how I should present that next time. How do I say that without saying it?
No, I think you just have to say it.
You have
a physics degree. I mean, if you're like, I have a communications degree, people are like, so? When you have a physics degree, oh, shit, okay. What? Okay.
You must know what you're talking about.
Yeah, all right.
About 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, not quite, but it's getting behind in the rear view.
Oh,
that's why I still, and from ASU.
And from,
Go Devils.
Not
probably the
MIT.
premier physics program in all of the nation.
Probably not.
MIT now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we don't need to get into MIT here. There's a long story behind MIT.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll save that for the next episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're getting close to the end of time, but I appreciate you guys coming by. Thanks for being here and safe travels.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming,
Yeah,
guys.
appreciate it, Peter.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you, everyone.